You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
Happy Easter morning, everybody. I'm Scott Couch. Delighted to have you with us on the show. Got some wonderful guests, some great topics. Legislature is hoping to wrap it up this week, so we're going to talk about a lot of bills that are at the dead end. Let me introduce our guest, and then we'll wade in. Rick Williams back with us, GOP strategist, worked on Governor Lee's campaign along with Congressman Andy Ogles. Jasper Hendricks on the other side of the table, Democratic strategist, current chair of the Metro Fair Board. Steve Gill, attorney, conservative television and radio analyst. You're as likely to hear him on television in this country as you are in England. He's on there a lot. And Emily Cupples back with us, former communications director for the Tennessee Democratic Party and the founder of Delta Public Strategy. She has struck out on her own, so if you need political advice, if you can't get it here, I don't know where you can get it on this panel. Guys, the first thing on our hit parade, if you would, sort of tongue-in-cheek, but if you guys have not heard, in the last week, our state legislature has passed a law designating hot chicken as the official state food of Tennessee, joining hot slaw and Memphis barbecue. And your tax dollars at work, I thought that was important to get the really heavy-duty stuff right out of the way right up front.
I'm making a proposal for Sam and Andy's steamed sandwiches out of Knoxville. Why are they not on the list?
Oh, goodness.
And East Tennessee is the only place you can find these steamed sandwiches, and they're worth putting on the list too.
It's only a matter of time before East Tennessee has some amount of representation. Jasper, you were down there at the legislature this week. Were you there when they were giving out the samples of hot chicken this past week?
I was not there because I was in the office writing speeches, and so preparing for the war that we were about to have on the House floor.
Sure.
So, but it was great to see that the creator, the woman who made hot chicken famous,
Princess Hot Chicken,
Princess
Hattie Beasley down there.
Yeah, she was. They were there, and I think the idea around this is that hot chicken is actually, you see it everywhere, and I see it when I travel. There's actually a Nashville social club in Reno, Nevada.
That's crazy.
And they sell.
Well, there's a Hattie B's in the Vegas airport.
Right?
Yeah. And so they are associated with the two.
That's kind of cool. Nashville hot chicken. Now, Rick was one of the few people around here who's actually from here. I remember when I came to town 40 years ago, nobody was talking about hot chicken. I don't know when this came about, but sometime in the last 20 years or so.
Everybody knew where Princess was on Ewing Lane.
Oh,
if you liked hot chicken, for me, I didn't need to go there. I'm not a hot chicken guy.
I like the regular.
Yeah, just give me the crispy, whatever. But have you been there? Have you been to Princess?
Oh, yeah. I've been to a lot of the hot chicken joints. I'm from the Delta, though, so Memphis barbecue.
It's never hot enough for you,
yeah,
is it?
And Memphis barbecue is my thing, so I prefer pork, low and slow.
That was
okay, all right.
I just wanted to mention that. It was sort of one of the fun things that happened in the legislature. Now I want to turn the page onto a serious topic. The second thing I had for us to discuss was a new state report that shows that national property values have increased some 72% since 2020. Now this news comes, as we talked a few weeks ago, Metro appraisals are about to start going out. In fact, I think the first of them may have gone out on Friday. And the trustee's office, Vivian Wilhoit, issued a report showing each of the district council, people and how much the property had gone up in their district, and the average was 45%. Jasper, I don't see how they can do this without the reassessments, without everybody's property taxes going up, given the state of finances in Metro.
And that's true. And that's property assessor Vivian Wilhoit, trustee is Erica Gilmore.
I'm sorry.
She collects it. Vivian tells you how much you owe, and Erica, collects it.
Erica's got an event on Saturday that I was thinking about,
yes,
and that's had her on my mind.
Yeah. And so you are, and it's natural you're going to see this increase, right? Because property values in Nashville is extremely popular, and a lot of people want to be here. Now, you're going to see a natural increase in the amount of revenue that's going to be collected, because of the amount that of the increase. And I think if we're going to see a tax increase, a percentage increase by the mayor, I think it'll be minimal, and not what.
So you think the valuations are going to keep the mayor from having to ask for as much as he might otherwise have had to?
I believe so, and then I think they'll also, we have other revenues that are coming into play that were passed last year that we're going to start seeing collections on, with the new zone and more businesses that's going to be coming into this new zone, that was created that has its own additional tax that will go into the city coffers. So I think we're going to see, we have to see all of that play out before I think he actually comes out with some big increase.
Well, the mayor was asked about it on Friday. Hey, are you going to increase taxes, and if so, how much? And he was able to kind of deflect a little bit because I don't think he's quite ready to talk about it. But do you think Jasper's right that this could be if he is right, that'd be a nice thing for the mayor? I'm going to get some more money without asking you for more money, so to speak.
Well, again, that distinction between the reassessment and the tax increase is really not going to be something people are going to pay much attention to. They're going to have sticker shock with the assessment going up. And I think he's wise if he tries to limit how much more, but you're already going to have sticker shock.
Yeah.
And I think that you're also going to see rental values go up as well. The companies that own the apartments, own the residences that are rented, they pay property taxes. So rent is already high in Nashville. That's going to go up as well.
Guys, got about a minute before the break. Rick, take some of that.
I think the mayor is hoping he can get by without a property tax, but I don't know if it's a good time to do it when they already got the sticker shock going on. Now you're wanting them to vote for a tax because he would put it to the council or the ballot. Which one was he going to do? Through the council, you think?
Council, they would have to approve a tax increase and ask for it. The mayor would ask for it, then you on the council would get a chance to say yes or no.
It's been a while because I guess I'm getting referendums mixed up with the transit referendum. So anyway, but I think, I don't know if the council members would be up for that in a year that they got reappraisal.
That's a tough. I want to keep talking about this, but I've got to squeeze in a commercial break. You get the first bite right on the other side. Stay tuned. You're watching Nashville in Focus.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
Right before the break, we were talking about Metro reappraisals and a state report showing that property value in Nashville had gone up 72% since 2020. You live in Nashville proper, too, and cover the council. This is going to be interesting. Rick says it'd be hard for the council to ask for an increase. I'm not sure the mayor's going to be able to get by without asking for some sort of an increase. I had heard a larger number.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the two things I would add to that discussion that the guys didn't already put on the table is, one, Metro is now a little more strapped for cash because we've lost so much federal funding, right? And so if you want to continue to invest in things like maternal mortality, how are we keeping pregnant women alive? Or how are we supplementing our public school funds, right? Per pupil funding, things of that nature. You almost have to have some new tax revenue in the system. Second piece of that is, Mayor O'Connell, if he were not to increase a small increase this time, it would just create a larger increase for him in his second term or a very large increase for someone in their first term in 8 years. And so I think, it's easier for residents to absorb an increase if you have multiple smaller ones than kicking the can down the road in a large increase.
We saw that a few years ago.
That
here in
property value
Nashville.
increase it's not going to go down, but keep in mind just a couple of years ago, the rapid value increase here was causing people
34%
to buy from out of town. They weren't
increase.
even looking at property. They were just writing a check. Things have slowed down since then. It's not going to go down, but the property sales are not as rapid. People aren't just paying whatever you ask or more like it was just a couple of years ago. So I think, again, that combined with the property tax increase, I think is going to make the assessment increase is going to make the mayor be very, very timid about going too much above that 45%.
Emily raises an interesting point, though. The question is, and you guys can ask yourself this at home, would I rather be asked for 4 or 5% every year or two, or they kick the can down the road for 5 or 6 years and I want 30%? I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow, but we've seen it happen both ways, and it seems like there's never a good time to ask for a tax increase.
Right. Well, and Jason Mumpower, former, what was he?
He's
former
state comptroller.
He's
still
current comptroller.
Still is.
He has suggested that municipalities do it on a regular biannual or annual basis, right? He has said do not, from a residential budgeting standpoint, it's hard for households to absorb large numbers like 30%.
Or you as a government, if you don't know how much money you've got, how can I develop a budget? Both sides.
Yeah. So he,
we tend to find
and
a way
he's
to
a
do it
Republican.
right now.
Yeah, and he's a Republican. And
when we don't know how much money is going to be coming in from the federal government, we can still pass a budget, without any discussion as to what are we losing, and what are we potentially about to lose. So I think we're going to see a lot of different things happening, interesting things happening with budgeting. I think we're going to see probably our state legislature coming back in before the end of the year because to redo finances because things are so unstable right now.
I looked at the state numbers that came in, I don't know, Wednesday, Thursday of this past week, and we are a little behind on the budget in terms of the revenue collections versus what we thought they were going to be, but not much. I mean, it's like down like 1/2 of 1% or 1/4 of 1%.
Yeah,
so even though it's not great, they're close.
Yeah, but that's revenue collection.
Yes.
But we're talking. But I'm speaking of the federal money. We have our state budget is about 37 to 40% of it
Federal money.
is federal money. You know, and so if you're not going to get some of that, you know, it's going to impact, you know, the various programs. They're going to have to figure out how to reallocate some things.
Well, if things get tight, can I use that TANF money?
Well, no, not well. I mean, it's for purposes, but they also
It is
have,
restricted.
10 care, you know, savings that could go into doing things for healthcare related. The TANF money could be used for summer feeding programs and, you know, things like that. So, you know, and employment programs and, you know, and all of that. So they could be switching some of that stuff out of the budget, but they're not. They're still keeping it in.
And keep in mind,
And
some
just
of
to be
those
clear,
federal
I was
dollars-
just setting this one up. He talks to me about TANF money a lot. I was just throwing that up there.
And some of those federal dollars cost money. You know, they're going to give you $1, but it costs you $1.20 to buy what they require you to buy. Or they're going to give you federal dollars, and then in the third year, you're on your own. So the states and local governments have to figure out,
It's
is it really
tenuous.
worth taking the money?
Yeah. Because sometimes, like you say, in year 3, I've got to figure out a way to pay for this police officer who initially you paid for. Well, 2 years later, I've got to pay them and their insurance.
Right, and some of that stuff is up now, and so that's why I said we're going to have to figure out, you know, and I guarantee we probably will have to be. And I was on the phone with, you know, Georgia, some folks in the Georgia legislature the other day. They've already signed died, and there's already speculation that they may have to come back, you know, before the end of the year. Because
So you really think that
they
could happen to
passed
us
the
too?
budget because they passed the budget based off of certain numbers, but nobody really knows that those numbers are going to hold.
Because Elon has not gone through with what
Right,
they might
he's
be
not
getting,
done.
so you
Right.
never know
He's
what
not
day
done.
there's a
Right.
cut coming.
Exactly.
And so, I think Freddie might need to get ready for some cuts too.
We live in interesting times. Speaking of Freddie, the mayor, Mayor O'Connell, got a little good news this past week, mostly a win. Got about a minute left in this break. The Court of Appeals upheld the ruling saying that the mayor's transit plan, Choose How You Move, was legit and all legal, except for the portion where it said we would use money to buy land that we would use for parks and affordable housing. The judges said you can't use, the way this thing's written, you can't use the money for that. But pretty much a win for the mayor, and I think that closes the door on that.
No, it doesn't. It's going to the Supreme Court.
Now, I had read comments that Emily Evans, who sued the city over this, was relatively pleased that she got a partial win, but your information is she's going to continue to push it.
I don't know. She hasn't told me, but people on that committee have told me they're taking it to the Supreme Court.
Well, and I would be surprised if Councilwoman Evans wasn't using this as leverage for something else, particularly maybe related to affordable housing or upzoning or other things. And so I think she may drop a lawsuit depending on other things, how they come out.
Interesting. And on that happy note, I've got to get a commercial break in, but we have so much more to talk about. Stick around. We've got a list. You're watching Nashville in Focus.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
I want to mention one bill that's passed by the legislature on its way to the governor before we take up our next topic, and that is the bill mandating 40 minutes of recess for our elementary school students, up from the mandated, I believe it was 15. Yes, I had a note there. I don't know how many schools were actually doing 15, but just so you know, starting in the fall, elementary schools will have at least 40 minutes of playtime. Guys, let's talk about the hemp bill. It passed. Critics say it's going to outlaw a lot of the products that people that buy here, but I watched the entire final conversation on the Senate floor, which was the last leg of this before going to the governor. And some of the local Republicans, Democrats, had said the horse is already out of the barn on this one, Rick, and people have been used to buying these products. We can't get them to stop buying them. Your thoughts?
I think it's ridiculous they are even doing what they did here. This is like moving things backwards. You've got businesses set up. You've got people legally growing product, legally selling it here in Tennessee, and you're all at once saying, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, you no longer have a business. And that's not the way to go. I mean, maybe it wasn't everybody's flavor, no pun intended, that they liked or whatever, but it's just, that's something they should have left alone. There's pressure from a lot of groups. Sheriffs are very involved in this, I think. And it's really sad because what they should do is pass medical marijuana, something that really helps everybody for sure, but they won't bring that up either. I mean, it's just, it's kind of weird. I mean, Jasper and I were just talking, you can drive 2 hours, right now we can leave and drive 2 hours and buy all the marijuana, I mean, legally in Metropolis, Illinois, but you know, the sheriff's here just like, oh my God, marijuana. I'm thinking, man, marijuana's not the problem. Fentanyl's the problem, and other things. But y'all are focusing still on the stuff that I really, they shouldn't. I don't think they should be. I think they should focus on what really could kill somebody.
There was talk, though, that you could go to, there a couple of blocks from the legislature and buy products that were stronger than intended, that were coming in from other states, and they really just weren't being regulated properly.
Well, I think, as long as we continue to make marijuana in general an extreme controlled substance, right, and prosecute felonies about it, you're going to continue to have a regulation issue, right? And unless you are willing to recognize it and give it real value, you're going to continue to have a regulation problem. Now, I think what's interesting is we were just discussing budget shortfalls, and look at Illinois, look at Arkansas, look at how they have
moneymaker,
impacted their budgets just by making this a legal substance because people are already consuming it and figuring out a way to tax it.
And regulate it. Do you buy that argument?
Yeah, and another thing I would throw out is that the THC levels that are the distinction between legal and illegal were picked at random. There is no legitimate reason that this is legal, that's not legal, and the THC levels are just kind of, again, arbitrarily picked. And it's great. They're going to make more of this illegal. What is going to be the enforcement? For a long time, you can walk down Lower Broad, you can smell it. It's not like they've been hiding. So what are they going to do now to enforce this new illegal hemp level?
I heard from a friend what it smelled like. I know what you're talking about. Jasper, you get the last bite.
I just think this is an example of unintended consequences under bad legislators. This was when they created the legislation, the original legislation that created these loopholes. Again, they got to come back and fix it. And then but it's too late now. It really is too late because
that's what Jeff Yarbrough said.
Yeah. Right, but this is something if you would have stopped taking the time, review the legislation, maybe work bipartisanly, maybe try to have different thoughts in there, and then pass a piece of legislation that was comprehensive.
You're talking crazy. I'm going to have to take a break.
So you're saying the legislators should take a deep breath and think that a breath that doesn't involve hemp before they do something.
Let's take a break. You're watching Nashville in Focus.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
In our final segment, I wanted to talk about perhaps the most controversial piece of legislation this session. That's one that would either allow or require school districts to identify where students are from. Are you here legally? The House has it behind the budget, which we've now passed the budget. The Senate had it on the table. It just means they put it off to the side. Will this pass? It's a Senate Bill 836.
I think you have people on both sides of the aisle for it, and I think you have people on both sides of the aisle against it. I truly do not know if it will pass, and I think if it does pass, it will go to the courts. I think at the end of the day,
which is what I think is desired, perhaps.
Perhaps. I think at the end of the day, I don't think anybody would argue that we don't need immigration reform, but that reform isn't going to come from kicking children out of schools. Right. I mean, we're talking about 6-year-olds that are just trying to learn how to read and write.
And don't know where they're from. In fact, there's some Republicans who made that very argument, Rick.
I think it passes only because members of the legislature want to get a lawsuit. They want to get
the challenge of that. Give the Supreme Court.
They want him to go to the Supreme Court with it and find out what the Supreme Court says. The Supreme Court might rule the same way they did many years ago, but they're ready for that fight, and I think they want to have it.
Will they get it, Steve? Will this thing pass, or will it die this time?
The legislature is ready for that fight, but they're not ready enough to fund the school districts that are going to have to spend the money to defend the lawsuit.
Somebody
if
asked
the legislature
that
wants to pick a fight, you better pony up with the money.
Somebody asked Bill Watson who's going to pay for the legal battle, and he said that's not part of the bill. You may have heard that too.
And I think that we're going to see a pause on this until next year, until next session,
Like
when we come
summer
back
study?
in January. No, we come back in January. So, because the bill can still live and wait until next year.
Yeah.
Can they
And
literally
so-
leave it at the progress it's at
Yes,
now and
yes.
pick it up?
Yep,
Like,
and pick
okay,
it
we
up.
just need
Yeah.
one more vote.
Yep,
It's
and
in
pick it up in
finance
January.
committees, right?
It's behind the budget, so it's in
Yeah,
finance
finance
sub.
committee.
And the Senate passed it, as I recall.
Right, but it's
Yeah.
in finance sub. But the Senate passed a different version. So even if it comes out from behind the
Yeah.
budget,
They have to marry
they have to
reconcile.
They have to go into conference committee
Committee.
and hash out the difference. So it's still not done, and then they're going to be done Monday, Tuesday.
So your sense is that this problem may
Maybe
wind
Wednesday.
up still undone, and they just wait until
Right, and just wait
January to take it
because
up
I think
again.
what they're realizing too is that they're actually they got the pedal on the metal, and federally and in states. And right now, things are very unstable, and they're right now not a friend of the court. The court is not smiling,
Yeah.
at the president right now,
administration.
at the administration right now. And so I think they're going to put a pause, and they have to pause, and then wait until it cool down
For
a
the air
little
to
bit,
clear.
and then pick it back up.
Well, as
in
Jasper
January.
pointed out last week, they got to have some good numbers on exactly what's the cost, exactly what are we paying here. I think the Supreme Court's going to be reluctant to overturn Plyer unless you got real good facts, and right
Right.
now they don't have great facts.
But then the governor just announced that they appointed the immigration czar for the state.
Yes.
So that just took place on Thursday.
Thursday or Friday, yeah.
And so I think with that they're going to start collecting the data that they need, that they're looking for, or they're hoping that they're going to find.
And that is to say, how many
Because I
kids are we
still
talking
believe-
about? We
Because I still
don't really
believe that
know.
these kids are children of people who are here, legally, but they need help learning they need help learning English, and so, I don't think they're going to find what they're looking for.
Well, to clarify, we do know as a state what it's costing us to teach ESL, English as a second language, and that's $300 million this past year.
But that's not all illegal.
that's not all
true.
right.
But what's less clear is how many students we're dealing with. Interesting conversation, interesting times. We will be back next week to let you know how this one ended. See you then.
Happy Easter.